Hello there, it's Overflow, and today we're going to cover a pretty sick browser project called ungoogled-chromium. So some of you guys may have heard of Chromium before. So if we look at Chromium, they're a pretty popular browser. It's what Chrome is based off of. It's also what other browsers are popular, like Brave, Vivaldi. These are all based off of Chromium. But what a big concern about Chromium is that since it's controlled by Google, there's going to be a lot of Google telemetry and things that aren't exactly pleasant. And as someone who used to use Chrome and Chromium as a daily driver, there were some really annoying nitpicks. So for me, my personal experience with Chrome is that I've used Chrome for a majority of my life, and then it got really annoying when I got assigned a school account. That school account did a lot of restrictions, and this was basically during the time that they didn't add a convenient user switcher, but you could still log into multiple accounts. So there was always this kind of jig that you had to do to make sure that you were always on the correct home account, school account, and you had to do different window switching. So I switched to Chromium because of that, since what would happen is that when you log into a Google account into the Chrome browser, it would basically integrate and it would put a bunch of restrictions if your Google account has restrictions on it. For example, when I logged into my school account, they blocked so many extensions, and one of the big reasons why I was so annoyed is that they blocked uBlock Origin on Chrome. You could not install uBlock Origin. You could install other spyware like Grammarly, but you could not install uBlock Origin or any sort of ad blocker, which made it super annoying because I was required to use that account, but I would see so many ads and I had to use it for web research because I couldn't just have my home account open. So I switched over to Chromium so that the extensions, rules, and whatever wouldn't sync, and I was able to use my normal browser extensions with my account. But then after a while, it got really annoying because you see Chrome and a lot of major browsers have codec support, DRM support, and Chromium just doesn't have any of that, and it makes it super annoying. And of course, even with Chromium, although it doesn't have as much telemetry as Chrome, it still has a lot of telemetry. So this is where ungoogled-chromium comes in. Ungoogled-chromium comes with zero Google telemetry and has most of the things removed. Of course, the feature set that it's going to work is a little less. You're not going to be able to do Google Cast because that's a Google service that's removed. It's literally ungoogled, but it gets you through most of the way, and you can do most of the things that you want to do on a browser. So I'm going to install and review ungoogled-chromium today. And of course, as someone who uses Librewolf, I'm a daily Librewolf driver. I use Librewolf, I compile Librewolf by myself. I absolutely love Librewolf, so I'm going to see how it compares to Librewolf. And then at the end, I'll give my final verdict on what I think about the ungoogled-chromium browser. So let's start and take a look at the readme.md. It's on their GitHub. You can usually just get it by DuckDuckGoing on ungoogled-chromium. There's a releases tab here, and it's not really helpful. It's just the source code. The actual installables are on other places. So let's see. So ungoogled-chromium is Google Chromium. Sans dependency on Google Web Services. It retains the default Chromium, and it increases privacy. Cool. So let's start. So you can not sign into a Google account. In fact, syncing your browser with Google account is completely removed, just like in Chromium. So it removes background requests to Google or to any web services, and removes code specific to Google Web Services, removes all pre-made binaries from the source code and replace them with user-provided alternatives, and disable features that inhibit control and transparency, and add or modify features that promote them. Okay, so let's look at the key feature overview. You can read this by yourself, but basically the summary is it's a bunch of privacy features. It removes Google things, and that's pretty much it. There are some more. You can read them by yourself, and some of them are borrowed from other browsers. Cool. So here's a list of all the supported platforms. So you have Android with ungoogled-chromium Android, Arch Linux, Debian Ubuntu, Fedora CentOS, Portable Linux, which I assume is app image, since this is also available on FlatHub, and I'll show you that later, Windows and macOS. So let's look at this. So these are the builds that are automatically, like they'll automatically update themselves and they'll automatically maintain themselves. So you have Android, Arch, Debian, Ubuntu, Fedora, Gentoo, macOS. These are all pretty normal, and I do like that they're using Homebrew instead of a .app for macOS. Homebrew is just a lot better. Gentoo, I don't really like Gentoo. Fedora available in OBS. That's kind of, well, that's outdated. I just like remove that because if you're using Fedora, I just refer you to the Flatpak since Fedora comes with Flatpak by default. Whoops. We'll show that later. Let me open that, and then when do they switch the Firefox UI for that does open link? Okay. And then you have GNU GX and Nix PKGs. Then you also have some third-party binaries. These are usually just like Windows binaries. It's where I get my Windows binaries from. And then some source code, FAQs, and some other things that may not be important to people. And here's like how to install things. And another thing, since all the Google features are stripped, there is no Chrome Web Store integration, so that's going to be something else that you have to install, and I'll show you how to install that. So to start here, we have our FlatHub for ungoogled Chromium, and I'll install ungoogled Chromium from FlatHub, since this is usually pretty up to date. And then here are some other, you have app images in case your distro doesn't support Flatpak, which is really rare. Like most things that I've seen support them. And then Arch Linux and Artix, for some reason these are out of sync. Pretty sure these are alternative repositories. I'm not sure. I don't know why there'd be an older version. Then you have like all these, and these are the Windows version that I would use since they're up to date at 103.5.56. And that's pretty much it. So let's get into the install of ungoogled Chromium. So if I open up this is Discover. I don't really like Discover, but it's whatever. It comes with KDE Neon. So let's see. It should be built into the repositories. Okay, and it's a FlatHub, and I'm just going to show you what it looks like to install. So it's a BSD3 license. It's from FlatHub. It's about 113 megabytes to download. And then some reviews. You're kind of watching this review right now, and let's look at the permissions. Network access, device access. It's really useful, especially if you have like a Pixel device and you're using the online web flasher, since that's a good feature of Chromium. Home folder access, I'd expect that. System folder access, that just looks like it's a network service. Session bus, like these are pretty normal, like file manager, notifications, screensavers, and then a KWAL-D for your passwords, media player. Yeah, these are really, so let's hit the install button. Okay, we're almost done, and of course Discover does this really weird thing where it slows down, but now it's done and we can launch Chromium, or ungoogled Chromium for that fact. And this is ungoogled Chromium. It looks pretty normal. It's Chrome. Of course, kind of odd that it says you and Google here, but since I think they're just like using automatic build services that apply a script or something, I don't think they're going to be like bothering to change this. So sync and Google services, of course, this is all basically removed. Autofill, passwords, yeah, these are all disabled by default. Let's look at what they have in the privacy and security. This is clear data. So it automatically blocks third-party cookies by default. It clears cookies and site data when you close all windows. This may be annoying if you wanted to stay logged into a service. Send to do not track. I don't know why this wouldn't be like automatically turned on. There's nothing wrong with it if it's turned on. You can tell me in the comments if there's like some horrible thing that if you turn it on by default. Preload things, so that's going to be a privacy risk. Security, it always use secure connections is off for some reason. Use secure DNS. I don't know what type of secure DNS it uses. I'm going to be assuming it's using DNS over HTTPS, but I'm going to leave that off because I don't know which type it's using. Site settings, these are like site permissions. JavaScript is not disabled by default because it's meant to be like an easy to use drop-in replacement. and pop-ups are removed. Appearance, you can use the GTK theme. It looks absolutely ugly because I'm using KDE and we're just using the default whited theme. Then you have your default, and then here's another odd thing. So by default, ungoogled Chromium comes with no search. So if you try to type things in like that, it tries to get you to a website, which won't work. So I'm going to put that on DuckDuckGo. The default browser, Chromium cannot determine or set the default browser. I don't know if this is a Flatpak behavior or this is just all of it. I'm pretty sure on a Windows build you can use this and you can set the default browser, so it may just be like a KDE or a Flatpak thing. On startup, open the new tab page, languages, downloads, accessibility. Yeah, these are all pretty normal. So of course you have the extensions page and then about Chromium, and right now we're using build 103. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how you can install the Chromium Web Store on ungoogled Chromium, because if we try and go to the Chrome Web Store, oh, and by the way, this button here doesn't actually do anything. I don't know why they put it there when it's going to be blocked by default. So let's go to the Chrome Web Store. So if we try and search for uBlock Origin, so let's try and install. You don't get an install button because it's actually, Google doesn't recognize this as a Chromium browser, so you don't get an install button. So what we want to do is say ungoogled web store. You can find this web store. It's from NeverDecaf. So if you go into this GitHub repo, they have pretty good instructions, because the default instructions for how to install extensions is to just download the CRX and then deal with it that way. That's going to be really annoying, and I prefer it if, the Chrome Web Store can handle it. Because if you don't really sign into the Chrome Web Store and all you're using is uBlock Origin, privacy badger, always on HTTPS, maybe they'll mark you as a privacy nerd, but there's not much after that. So there are a couple Chrome flags that you are going to want to install. So these are always pretty fun, messing with Chrome flags. So you want to turn this on to always prompt for install, and then while we're here we can download the CRX. Whoops, so we're going to have to restart browser. So for this you want to restart the browser after you turn on the Chrome flag. Pretty sure my history got cleared. No, it did not. I'd like history clearing on by default, but it's just kind of goofy. So let's go back to the releases. Download the CRX, and then you can choose to add the extension. And now if you go to the Chrome Web Store, it should be working by default. Now, still don't know why they built that into by default. Okay, and now we have uBlock Origin. So that's how you get the Chromium Web Store on ungoogled Chromium. It's pretty simple, and now we're going to talk about why someone might want to use something like ungoogled Chromium over something else like Librewolf. So let's do an alt tab so I can tell you the benefits of each. So a benefit of Librewolf for me is that it's pretty close to default Firefox, which means that Firefox extensions work by default and don't require that process to install another extension. And it comes with uBlock Origin by default as an extension, which is absolutely great. A benefit of Chromium, ungoogled Chromium for that fact, is that it's a lot more compatible with websites. There's a lot less of the use a Chromium browser thing. So something that I know is pretty prevalent is something like Smart Music. So if we go to Smart Music on both sides, so what happens on Smart Music, and I'll blur this out, is that so Smart Music website design is really bad. So let's try it on Librewolf real quick. So you'll see that it'll tell you, we're sorry, your browser is not supported to enjoy Smart Music. And if you go on Chromium instead, I don't know why they got a WordPress image there. It's kind of odd. If we go on Chromium, it'll hit us with the login prompt, and if we do actually log in, everything will work. you can bypass this by installing some extensions on Librewolf, but it's just an annoyance, and some things don't work in Smart Music, and it's really annoying. So that's why I like to keep something like ungoogled-chromium around, just so I can use these things when they tell me that it's not supported. And also, another thing with Librewolf is that its privacy things make some things in Replit a little unusable. So if we go into some sort of Replit, described a random account, you'll see that the code editor, when you try and run code, it gets scrambled and it's basically unusable. So that's another thing where the anti-fingerprinting thing of Librewolf messes it up a lot, and that does not happen on me for ungoogled-chromium. So here are the final thoughts. So would I switch over to ungoogled-chromium as someone who's already using Librewolf? And the answer is just no. I like Librewolf. I'm planning on supporting a fork of Firefox, not original Firefox. So original Firefox is really bad, but we'll get into that on a later date. I support original Firefox, but I like the Gecko engine, but I want compatibility. I don't want absolute privacy freak while still having a good amount of privacy mixed in. And Librewolf actually supports a lot of Google services quite well, since of course I'm uploading this to YouTube. I also use other Google services. So unlike ungoogled-chromium, where you're gonna get an ungoogled browser to log into YouTube, it'd be kind of stupid to try and use this as a daily driver. So my final verdict is that ungoogled-chromium is probably something I'm going to keep installed on my Linux system, just for that case when something like Smart Music tells me that I need to switch to Chromium-based browsers. I'll use it for that, and maybe if I'm doing any of my funny web development things, I'll test it on a Chromium browser, make sure nothing will support, but that's basically it. I'll be staying on Librewolf, but that's it for today, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.